right, so you had this. You're creating a slide deck for. You said it was LQMS, which is based out of the UK.
It was a slide deck for how to use Oasis, which is it's a database where any supplier or contractor, if they're certified through an aerospace standard like AS9100, AS9110, and so forth, they'll be in this database, and then it will show their status, like their certification to what standard they were certified by, when their certification is going to expire, when they're due for reissue, and then who certified them to whatever standard. So like say in the case, say like a major aerospace company, I don't know, let's make one up. Let's say Cessna, for instance, right? Mm-hmm. It will show who certified Cessna, or what certifying body or auditor certified Cessna to the AS standard, whatever that applicable AS standard is. For those people who are not familiar with AS or ISO, it's more or less like a procedures manual, air quotes manual, of how to create and manage a quality management system. So this is kind of like what drives a company's quality assurance to do what it does. Now,
yeah, and to add to it, it's like a industry standard, but it doesn't matter what the industry is. Aerospace, yes. Automotive, IT, building basketballs, you know?
Yes. And that's ISO. So ISO is like international. That's like everywhere. And like MVP said, like from airplanes to basketballs, they all follow ISO. What AS does is it takes the ISO standard and it adds to it. Like this is stuff that's specific to aviation. Like say, we want extra documentation, or we want you to maintain records for a certain period of time. MROs across the nation and MRO equivalents across the world have some form of AS standard where like you have to maintain documentation for like 2 years or something to that effect. Now I will say, like with ISO and AS, it gives you a how-to, but it doesn't tell you exactly what to do. Okay, I think that's for new QAs or new continuous improvement professionals. That's something that's a little bit different from their mindset. So it's kind of like a commandment versus like a how-to. Like you shall have a documentation system. You shall maintain records.
It's a cornerstone, right? And then you kind of build the house upon the cornerstone.
Yes,
how you want your house to be built.
Exactly. And so what I was doing throughout the day was I'm making this presentation / lesson plan of like how to access this database, right? Because for the most part, if you are someone in the quality assurance group or you're someone in a continuous improvement group, you're going to want to at least know how to access this. And the reason for it is, say you're a brand new company or you're a well-established company or MRO and you want to buy supplies from a certain vendor. And this said vendor swears up and down the chain that, yes, we are ISO certified, we are AS certified, whatever. This is your way of verifying that, yes, they are indeed certified and their certification is valid, for one, and it's not expired or suspended or there's some craziness to it. Another good part about the Oasis system is, say they were in the process of getting certified by a third-party auditor and they found stuff against them. Like, say, they don't store their hazmat correctly, or they had some issues making products to the specifications their customers set for them. It's going to flag in that audit. And then that's kind of like your indicator, like, well, how bad was it? And say you are doing an inspection on them to kind of see if you want to buy stuff from them. That's a good tidbit of knowledge to know, like, okay, these guys have a record of having some deficiencies. And say if it happens again, then you can see, well, it's what did the auditors find or the certifying body find? How did you address it? And then why is this happening again? Right. So that's kind of like a reoccur right off the bat. And you didn't have to do the legwork to figure it out because someone else already did. And especially for something like a third party audit, there's so many different avenues they approach. There's so many different modules that they hit. It's a whole slew of information. And if you were to read an audit report just flat out, you would get lost with so much info. I mean, if you didn't know exactly what you're looking at, you're like, well, this is a lot of information. And for a new budding quality assurance professional or or continuous improvement professional, when they see this kind of stuff, they'll be overwhelmed, like right off the bat, like, whoa, this is a lot of stuff. Like they don't know which ways about it, what does PAIR stand for, what does KPI stand for, what are these processes, how do they figure it out, what is this metric that they're using to audit the supplier or contractor for. It's a lot of math and stuff, and this is kind of good stuff if you're going for, like, say, a auditor's certification yourself, or if you're going to try to do some kind of process improvement project for your company or your organization, or you're trying to improve upon your standards for a supplier that you're trying to control, stuff like that. It's pretty cool stuff. I mean, when you look at it face value, it doesn't look like much, but once you deep dive into it and actually know where to go, it turns into a big thing. Like, oh man, like what I see as the best overall value is you can figure out all this information from a third party that you don't have to do double effort by doing a full quality assurance baseline or a baseline inspection on a supplier or MRO or whatever, because someone else already did it. So now you're just like, okay, what did they hit you on, or what did they inspect you to, and where are you at with it, or what have you done since the audit? And we've all been there before, where certain places, when they're getting an audit, they kind of clean up their act for that duration that they're there. You know what I mean? And as soon as they leave, that's when they feel good about themselves that they passed, and then they loosen up. They say, okay, we passed, we did great. They make this very soft promise to each other that they're going to continue doing the good things because they've cleaned up and whatnot. But then 1 to 2 weeks later, now we're business as usual. Like, whatever, the way we conducted ourselves, we leave parts all over the place. We have tools all over the place. We put non-serialized parts in bins that they're not supposed to be. I believe the Air Force calls this scrounge. I'm not sure what that terminology is across everywhere else. Air Force calls it scrounge. Marines and Navy call it the PEB, or a stock, air quote stock. I believe some civilian organizations call it air quote free stock, or
common stock.
Yeah, or over the shelf kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's that was going a little off tangent, but that's more or less like what the info you're getting from Oasis, and then to say, like, once the auditors leave, how likely is that organization or that site likely to maintain that level once the auditors leave?
Well, if experience tells us anything, it's not great.
Yeah.
It's usually anywhere from 3-day to 2-week revert to revert to base.
Yep.
So the main thing of Oasis is that these auditors come in, and it tells you how and what the auditor is certified to. It inputs all the information from the entity you're auditing, and you input the data, kind of what you're auditing or what you're looking for in that particular audit. And then it's a historical tracking or archive of, you can see the progression of the audit, right? So auditors come, look at forms, look at common stock, look at has, and okay, well, we had some dings in common stock and has. Okay, the next time they come, the next auditor looks at that and says, "Oh, we had these problems last time. I'm going to go back and look at these this time to see if anything had been changed." And then it'll be adjusted for improvements from previous audit on common stock has, or hey, continual decline in process, or no seemingly improvements in place since prior audit.
Correct.
Something
Absolutely.
like
And then like you were saying with historicals, like all this stuff is stored, and anybody and everybody who has that level of access to Oasis, they can see it. So say like if your company is doing terrible, right, and you think that you can just get by and get away with it, if it's major enough, it'll flag in Oasis, and then everybody and their mother who's even remotely thinking of doing business with you will see it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So if you're a company and you're like, hey, I need to find a supplier who makes these gears.
Yep.
Okay, well, let me see all the gear companies out there. Okay, here's these top 5 I've narrowed it down to. And you can look in there and go, oh my gosh, well, these 3 are out right away because they just can't seem to get life together.
Right.
Over the past 6 years,
Right. And certain information, I will say, like, if you want to deep dive into the info, you kind of have to have some kind of clearance with that supplier or that contractor or that organization you're trying to get with. But right off the bat, if you just if you have access and you search their organization, you'll see right away if their certification is active or suspended or revoked, right? And that right there, that's a huge flag, because like, why is your shit revoked? Right?
Well,
or why is it suspended? And
is it a federal requirement to have your business input into Oasis, or what mandates your business going into Oasis? Is it by choice, or is there like some regulation that says you have to? So, because otherwise, right, if you're kind of a dirtbag company and you've got a reputation of not operating safely or efficiently, you're not going to sign yourself up for that, because you don't want that to get out there. So the only way people know how bad you are is either from prior experience or word of mouth. Right.
And this is where it gets a little bit not convoluted, but not complicated either. I would just say like it depends, right? Like say if you're a distributor, right? You don't make the parts, you just put your sticker on it and sell it off, right? Kind of like how Foot Locker sells Nike shoes, right? It's not Foot Locker shoes, but it's Nike, but we sell it here. That kind of AS standard for, say, distributors, there is a federal regulation saying that if you are a distributor, you must be held to this standard. Likewise, say an MROs have their own AS standard, and for them to even be an MRO, they have to be certified to that standard. What's the FAR for MROs? I forget. It's I keep want to say 145, but that's not 145.
91s?
For MROs, yeah.
Or is it 121? Is it 121?
Is either 121 or 134. Yeah. I might be.
I should have these memorized by now.
I know it done for me, because a lot of the FAR stuff I mix it up with other stuff, and the numbers kind of mess me up. We're failing everybody now. Sorry. Don't take your general AMP exam based off our info right now, or based off our knowledge of the FAR. But anyways, what I mean is, like, say for an MRO, if they want to have or be called an MRO to the FAR, they have to have an AS standard, and that's federally regulated, which they have to maintain. They have to be re-inspected and recertified every so many years. I believe the general rule of thumb is 3. So I think your certification is only good for every 3 years, and then you get a routine inspection every at least once a year, something like that. But so yes, answering your question, it depends on what the organization is. Like, say if they're a supplier, like they make the parts, they have to have some kind of certification, or it is also baked into whatever contract that they're they signed up for. Like say if they're a supplier and they're making stuff for the federal government, that's between them and the federal government if they want to be certified to that standard. Now, if a company claims to be AS9100, then until they actually show the paperwork or the certificate itself, then they're just blowing smoke. So I guess the closest thing they could say is AS9100 or ISO 9001 like we're not there, but we work just as good.
Yeah.
So switching gears real fast, we got a request from a patron about exploring some of the pros and cons of different shift types, right?
Oh man.
Or work schedules, right? I think that's a better way to say work schedules, right? So,
and there's quite a few of them in today's world, right? It's not just your standard 9 to 5 anymore.
Right.
There's 6 to 4:30. There's 6 to 3:30 if you're on a 580, or the 6 to 4:30 if you're on a 410.
Yep.
There's the 410A schedule, Monday through Thursday. 410B schedule, Tuesday through Friday. There's your 312s, which are Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
And then there's all that same combination on a swing shift and a mid shift.
Yep.
Swing shift being average of 3 p.m. to 11:30, and mid shift being somewhere around 10 p.m. till like 07.
Yep. And now, mind you, for everyone, all our international listeners, this is kind of like the standard for the U.S., right? I'm not sure how other countries do it as far as like their minimum hours required per pay period. I believe France is like 6-hour work days or something to that effect.
That's funny you brought that up. I was just about to say, I was like, France is down to like 6 hours a day, and I think it's the standard that everybody, no matter what your job is like 8 weeks of vacation a year,
something
6
like
to
that.
8 weeks mandatory, and then it could obviously be up from there depending on who or where you work.
Right.
But yeah, I think the base minimum is 8 weeks. Could you imagine getting 8 weeks? I wouldn't.
I don't know what to do with myself, man.
Like, I would definitely find things to do with myself, but I can't fathom that at this time.
Right. I'm happy if I just get a day off, period. Right. And then vice versa.
An afternoon at this point.
Yep. An afternoon. Exactly. And then some other countries like say Japan, where like it's 10-hour days minimum, and then it can go upwards of 16 hours depending on what the job is.
That is true. Oh my gosh, I forgot about that 6. You're right, because they're hard working people.
Yep. Now, so if we're here in the U.S., right, the standard pay period by hour or hours for pay period is about 80, and that's split up within 2 work weeks, let's say. So 80 is kind of like your golden number. I think even for exempted salary employees, where they just get a monthly rate, is about the same as an 80-hour work pay period. I was about to say 80-hour work week, but 80-hour pay period. And how that's split up, it all varies. We have the standard issue cookie cutter base model 5/8, right? Which is 5-day work weeks for 8 hours a day. And I think that's like any place in the US has that. Schools have it. Shit. Schools have 5/8. Regular part-time jobs at a Party City or a costume store have 5/8. And I think the good side of a 5/8 is it's so consistent. Like you see it everywhere. You're so used to it. It's almost like a given that there's going to be a 5/8. And the plus side about it is like your days are kind of, or especially here in the US, your days kind of revolve around an 8-hour period. Like you're doing 8 hours of work, then you have 8 hours off, and you have a little bit of float to whatever your schedule is, depending on what it is. And 8-hour work days, they kind of go by real fast. So I mean, like you go 6 hours, you get a lunch, then you work 2 hours, and then you go home.
Yeah, let's rephrase that a little bit. They go fast if you've worked any other hours other than 8 hours a day.
That's true.
If you've never experienced anything more than 8 hours, then 8-hour days are long.
Yeah, that is true. You're right. You got me.
But most of us, I think, have experienced more than 8 hours in a day, up to like 36 to 40 consecutive hours straight.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just was thinking about that. I was like, well, because we might have some young listeners who are like, oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine working more than 8 hours a day. It's like, oh, you better get your imagination on point. Then it's about to get a good workout.
We're about to strengthen those imagination muscles. Good.
Hope you got your imaginary friend on hook. You're going to need that person.
But yeah, so, and you're absolutely right. But that's the cookie cutter standard issue work week. The next one up, which is probably it's one that I was first introduced when I got reintegrated back into the civilian life from the military. Because I mean, from the military, the only 3 shifts I knew was 16-hour days, 12 on, 12 off, and 24/7. That was it.
Yeah. I forgot about the 12 on, 12 off and the 980s.
Yep. That was actually about to go about too, the 980s. So like when I first came back into the civilian world, post-military life, the 980 was the work schedule that I got integrated with. Now 980s, again, going back to that 80-hour pay period week, or that pay period. So you work 8 hours or work 80 hours for a pay period, but instead of 5 days a week for 8 hours, now it's like you work 9 hours a day, and then
4 days in a row, and then the 5th day is 8 hours.
Yep. And
then Monday, the next week of the pay period, right? The second week of the pay period was 4 days of 9 hours, and that 5th day off.
Yes. So the benefit about a 980 schedule is every other week you get a 3-day weekend. Depending on what organization you're with, that 3rd day could flex. It could be midweek, it could be a Friday, it could be a Monday. It all depends. But for the most part, you're getting an extra day off because you work an hour more for about 8 days out of the pay period. And that was actually kind of nice, right? I particularly liked that one when I first got reintegrated, because having a 3-day weekend every other week was pretty nice. And the next one up, and I think this is probably like one of the more ideal shifts. So if you are in a position where you can you find jobs that are right around that align with what you want to do, say like let's like flatline them all, saying they're all pay relatively the same, their work is relatively the same, their job description is relatively the same, and some of the key differences is like the work schedule. For the next one is 410s, and that's probably, if I were to say, that's probably like the best schedule. At least
speaking for myself personally, that is my favorite schedule.
Yep. And it's exactly that. Yeah, 4 days a week for 10-hour days. And instead of every other week, you get a day, you get 3 days off, you get 3 days off every week. That's pretty badass, if you ask me.
Yeah, right? it helps a lot, like getting just personal things done, right? You have a day off during the week when you can go to the DMV, you can go grocery shop, and you can doctor's appointments. So you're not taking time off of work to take care of your, I would say, normal life things, right? Yep. You're not wasting vacation time to do the DMV. Instead, you can use your vacation time for actual vacation.
Yes. And that's like by far the best plus of 410s is like, yeah, you're working 10-hour days, and they kind of split the day up depending on the organization. But after those 10 hours, you go home, do whatever you need to do. And then that 3rd day, actually that 5th day out of the week, you got that day off. So 3-day weekends every week. That is dope. The next one, it's kind of sort of a 410s. It's called the 310s. It's near identical to the 410 schedule, except you're working weekends. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. However the organization wants to split it, but you're working the air quote weekends for 3 days a week, 10-hour days. And correct me if I'm wrong, ABP, with 310s, you're getting the weekend double time, or not double time, the overtime rate for the weekend, correct?
Yeah, typically, right. So especially for the off, I'll say circadian rhythm hours. Those schedules are typically a higher pay because that's how you attract people to that shift, right? You're never going to get anybody to sign up, but people are like, oh, it's time and a half is actually my base pay now. And then I only work 30 hours, but get paid for 40. And then I get 4 days off every week instead of just 2 days or 3 days, or every other week, 3 days. So there are advantages to that. I will say, from my experience, it's been primarily either people whose kids are grown and gone. They're older and the kids are off to college or beyond. They work that week because they get more time off. But their weekends aren't taken up with running around to kids' events, sporting events, whatever the case may be. So they opt to go that route. More money, more time off. Or it's people, it's young people just entering the workforce.
Yep.
They get in there, and that's typically over the weekend. Engineering's on site all week. They're doing their dispositions, and then they email them out right before they punch out for the week, and you spend all weekend playing catch up or fixing repairs to things that were damaged during the week. Unfortunately, but that's just how it is.
Yep.
So they put new people into the workforce there because you're going to get a lot of experience really fast.
Yep, this is true.
And speaking of experience really fast, new to the workforce, at least in aviation, you're going to get most of the new entries into the workforce are going to be swing shift or mid shift. Mm-hmm. That's just because the aircraft are flying all day. They land, and you spend swing shift spends all their shift fixing what broke during the flight, and mid shift spends their entire shift getting them serviced and prepped for flights for the next day.
Yep.
Unless you're on some outfits out there where, depending on, I don't know how far I should go in with this 6, but sometimes there's only things you can only operate at nighttime.
Right.
Due to the nature of whatever it is you're working on. So you need as much open airfield as you can get. So they wait till everybody else goes to sleep, and the gremlins come out at night. The sunken eye, gray skinned, scruffy bearded gremlin that is the nighttime mechanic.
That's very true. I will also say for the 310 pit shift, if you're interested in that, if you don't care about your weekends, like as MVP said, the circadian rhythm where everyone else is having a weekend and you're working, by all means. Or like say you want to be that parent that drops your kid off to school or something like that. That might be another case. But then again, you also got to factor like how old is your child and stuff like that, or what kind of activities they're going to. Because for some cases, it might work out to be on the 310 shift. It might, right? And then there's also avenues for overtime and this and that. The next one, I would say, this is kind of like splitting hairs at this point. It's the 312s, which it's almost identical to the 310s with the caveat that you're not getting paid more to work. Well, I wouldn't say that. Yeah, you're not getting paid as a 310 shift person would. You're just working 3 days of 12 hours a day. And that it's not too bad. But again, it also depends on what you're doing, because those 12 hours can drag, and then it kind of turns into like this 12 on, 12 off mode where even though you're not working, you're still living in that sense. And that can actually screw up your daily livelihood or whatever it may be. It may or may not. I've seen both cases where people made it work and actually turned out great. And I've seen it somewhere people are falling to pieces, but it's only a 3-day work week, but they're so used to doing that 12 on, 12 off mode for those days that they are working that they just don't know how to switch it off and do whatever the hell they want to do afterwards.
Yep. Yeah, it's difficult to do, right? People say 312's easy, and it's only 2 more hours than the 310s, and you're like, and we're there always 2 more hours anyways, either looking for a lost tool or still putting stuff away or whatever the case is. But I got to tell you, them 12-hour days get long, especially when you get home and you pretty much all you can do is go right to sleep.
Yep.
And then get up and do it all over again. But, for me personally, swing shift was always my favorite. You didn't have to deal with the bureaucracy of the day, right? All of management and everybody, all the kiss and suck asses typically work during the daytime. And then, your more battle worn people that you're going to learn a lot from work the swings time, just because that skill set's valued there in fixing everything. So you always learned a little bit more. You worked with, in my experience, a different caliber of people. Super skilled technicians, but not a suck ass. They're relatively chill people who survive on caffeine and nicotine.
Right.
and so that was always my favorite, because you still had a whole day in front of you, and then you went to work. Now people are like, oh no, I hate that schedule because I feel like all I do is wake up and go to work. Well, I'm going to tell you, and I told this to all the new guys, and I still tell them, the only way swing shift works is that as soon as you get off work, you go home and you go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
You get off at 11:30, you get home at midnight and try to be in bed by midnight 30, and you wake up at 7.
Yep.
That's still what, six and a half some hours of sleep.
Yep.
And then you've essentially, you had a normal day as a human being. You're still awake during daylight hours. You're getting home a little bit later and you go to bed. Now, in some Latin American countries, it's very common for people to be out late anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you work during the daytime. So if you're one of those cultures, like, staying up that late's nothing for you. But I got to tell you, for me, because I grew up here in the States, 7:30 in the evening rolls around and I'm sitting here like bobbing for apples trying to stay awake. Because we're so used to getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning to be at work by 5 or 6. Whereas I feel like a lot of other cultures have it a little bit better in regards to the hours of operation, right? You ease into your day a little bit. It's not wake up, slam a 74-ounce coffee and vibrate through your day as the caffeine circulates through your system, right? You get up and you have your whole day, right? You have your coffee, you can go to the gym, you can run to the store, you can get some things done, and then you head to work.
Yep.
And so that's why I liked it, but it worked for me because I would come home and just go right to bed. Now, that being said, it did get a little bit more difficult as kids get older, right? They have their practices and stuff in the evening time. They're doing their homework in the evening time. So what's the downside, right? It's you miss some time with family. Mm-hmm. Because, like Six said earlier, majority of the world works, a 9 to 5 schedule. So when everybody else is at home chilling in the evening time, going to practices, having dinner together, doing homework, you're at work busting your knuckles and shouting obscenities.
Very true. And those are the things that you would definitely have to factor in if you are able to choose work schedule, or if the company has those kind of options for you. You got to factor in what your off work hours like, or what your outside of work life like. How far are you away from your job? how sometimes if you want to really split hairs, we can talk about your age too. Like, um, there's some studies out there, a whole bunch of articles that talk about like how your age affects your circadian rhythm, affects how you sleep, how long you're able to stay awake and and stay asleep and stuff like that. There's a whole slew of things that to factor in, but ideally, if we were to pick a shift or pick a work schedule that would just be money in the bank, wherever you go, it'd be the 410s. At least in our opinion, it'd be the 410s. And because yeah, you're working 2 hours longer than the average person would, but depending on the organization, if you did work 8 hours, they would possibly ask you to stay for that extra 2 hours anyway. The difference is you're not getting overtime rate for those 2 hours. On the plus side is you get an extra day off every week. So
yeah, and if there is overtime work, that entire extra day is all overtime.
yes, very true. Now we can we can split into nuances about overtime and double time and how you split your breaks and how those hours factor in and stuff for both hourly employees and salary. And that's definitely something we can really bring up if you guys are wanting to hear us talk about that. But to the patrons out there that requested this, I hope we answered your question. And if you have any more about it, please feel free to contact us. You know how to get a hold of us. Or if you want us to make an episode about that whole salary or hourly thing and how.
So actually, to add to that, Six, sorry to cut you off, but I wanted to add one more caveat in there, right? So as Six said, there's factors to take into account when you're trying to figure out a shift that's a work schedule that's good for you. You know, are you new to the workforce and single? Are you new to the workforce and married? Are you new to the workforce and married with kids? Are you a single parent? Are you hourly? There's a lot of factors to take into play when making a decision. So I understand it may not be so cut and dry, but one factor beyond what we've talked about is the salaried side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Many organizations, at least here in the United States, after your 80 hours or 40 hours, any additional work is unpaid. Your contract states that you're paid for 40 hours a week, 80 hours per pay period. Anything over that, Uncle Sam thanks you for your
contribution
to national security type thing.
Yeah.
And so Six and I did work for an organization where we were working 7 days a week, and there was management there that were 7 days a week, and they weren't getting paid.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, they're all day Saturday and Sunday. They might have hit their 80 hours by Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is all, or until the next pay period kicks in, maybe Saturday. So you'd say Thursday, Friday was all unpaid for them.
Jeez,
to heck with that.
Right.
Look, I'm telling you right now, to heck with that. I understand companies mandate and everybody wants to do good, but you've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere because they will take and take and take. Now, I'm fortunate, at least in my current position, that we get as salary, anything after your 80 hours, you get what they call extended work. And they basically take your salary pay, break it down into an hourly, and then that's what you get paid for those, anything beyond your 80 hours. Now, you're not making time and a half or double time. You're just making a straight flat rate, but at least you're getting paid.
This is true.
So some other contributions, but that's why you say why, shift work. It's always the hourly blue collar, working swings and mids, just getting the shaft on everything. Well, that's why a lot of salary work a 9 to 5, because people are not wanting to give up any more time. And you see the necessary, and you've seen that a change. It was not always the case. You get people that would just be there 24/7, regardless if they're getting paid or not. You're definitely seeing a shift in that thought in the culture in our current work environment.
That is absolutely true.
There's a lot of people like, I hit my time, bye, and you're like, well, it's Wednesday, bye,
right? So you ain't getting free work out of me,
right? And that's where people are taking a stand. So, good and bad, right? May not look so well in a review for you. But which case, do you really want to work there anyways?
Very true.
Or is it, is it one of those, man, I feel like I'm letting my team down, but I've already got my hours in. But in my experience, nobody really holds that against you. Like, hey, they went home, they got their hours in. Maybe you need to hire an extra body or figure out a different pay scale here. But people are not willing to give up their time anymore because, and Six and I have said this for a long time now. Instead of giving a bonus or whatever at the end of the year for a company, give them an increase in time off accrual. I mean,
Yes.
the time off is so much more valuable than the merit or the bonus. And why is that, right? Cost of living goes up 9 to 11% per year, but your annual merit increase is 3%, let's say. So you're just never going to catch up. So people are like, well, if I'm going to be poor, I might as well have some more time off.
Yep. And
You know,
plus, you can't tax time off. I advocate that to the grave, and that'd be a hill I die on. You can't tax time off.
that's an excellent statement because it's true.
Yep. and there's so many nuances to it, and MVP brought up a very good point, especially for salary workers, right? Depending on the organization, there's a certain amount that they have to cut you off at, right? Like MVP mentioned, extended work week. Even that has a limit, right? So you can't just go on to that for forever. At some point, they will draw the line on you. Like, hey, you must reduce these or figure it out or hire someone else, as MVP said. There's so many different ways to cut this. And we can definitely address this on another episode that goes specifically into this topic, or at least with the hours and how they work out and how they are budgeted or why they're set up a certain way and how it factors for the exempt / salaried employees. For military guys, they pretty much work one shift and that's till the job's done. And whoever is in charge determines when you leave. And you just get that twice a month paycheck, and then they pretty much own you for that time being. But
yeah, I was gonna say you might as well have a barcode etched into you because you're kind of an own piece of property.
It's true though. It's true. But let us know what you think. What's your favorite shift? What makes you say that's your favorite shift? If you could pick one, what's your ideal shift? Your ideal work hours, your ideal work days. Me personally, I would like to get a day off midweek. And I say that because like everyone's at work and you're chilling, having your day off, right? So everyone's out busy doing whatever, and you're just kind of the roads are a lot more open when everyone else is working and you're not. I'll just say that. But
yeah, I agree with that. Although I don't know, so it is nice to have like the days back to back consecutively.
That's true.
So I don't know how I would feel about working 2 days, having a day off, and then having to go back to work for 2 days.
That's true.
I see both sides, right? I see it be enticing. I would want to try it, actually, I think.
Yep.
Where I show up and you deal with 2 days of BS. You're like, well, at least I'm off Wednesday. And then you're like, okay, and then it's only 2 days and I'm at the weekend again.
Yep.
So it might not be so bad. But again, I think it probably depends on where you're at in your life,
yes,
your career.
Very true. But again, let us know what you think. Hit us up on all the socials. Check out our website. Hit us up on our email. Give us your thoughts. What do you guys think? Any final thoughts on this, MVP?
Nope. Just take. I say no, and then I keep talking. What a jackass. So yeah, I guess I do. Just take careful consideration. Obviously, your job is your job, and you're going to work whatever you're told. We get it, but if you can swing it for yourself, make it the best you can be. If you're a leader out there in an organization and you have a little bit of freedom of choice, I was fortunate enough to be granted that when I first got into my role. We worked 580s, and when I was a hourly worker, I was advocating hard for 410s or at least a 980. And my boss at the time said, nope, impossible and implausible. I said that seems like lazy. It's definitely possible. how to ask me how. Oh, I worked those before. So if you're a leader out there and you have the resources available and you can ensure all, your statement of work is met by not being there every day, make the transition for you and your team to get on one of those schedules that affords you an extra day.
Yes, very much so. Love it. I appreciate the fact that you did that for your teammates and you chased it down and you didn't take no for an answer, because now in the long run, everyone gets that extra day off to unwind whatever or whatever they decide to use that day for. The fact is they have it, right? So that's definitely a factor for everyone else out there. If you are in a position of influence like that, or you are given that kind of option to have that kind of schedule. Awesome stuff. But again, hit us up. Let us know what you think. And on that note, thanks again for listening. We'll catch you all again next time.
Bye, everybody.
We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners. With special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Eric Shaw, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Mike Sherwood, Caleb Stockhill, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks like access to our private Discord, discounts and early access to our merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. You can further support us and show off your prowess as an aircraft specialist by visiting our shop at cancelformaintenance.com. If you like classy or rugged watches, visit our affiliate Rockwell Time at rockwelltime.com. Use the code CX, the number 4MX to save 10% off your total order. If you have suggestions for the show or you'd like to be a guest on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at cancelformaintenance.com and we'll do what we can to get both your ideas and yourself on the show. Please support us on social media like Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at CANX for Maintenance Podcast, or Twitter at CXMX Podcast. Please check out our new comic series on the Tapas app. Like, share, subscribe, and comment on our comics. Let us know what you think. Thank you all so much for your support and listenership, and we will catch you all next time.